what's up everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today, as you can see, I have a pretty interesting video for you guys. So today, I'm going to be giving my final verdict for the ASUS TUF RTX 3070, which supposedly is a little bit faster than the RTX 2080 Ti, which actually costs, still around like €1,000. Testing here though, the MSRP is like $499, but expect to pay around $600 or euros for the TUF series card from ASUS. And yeah, looking at the card, the cooling solution and everything like that, it's a pretty decent bang for your buck. But how good is it exactly? How well does it perform in benchmarks? That's what we're gonna check out. I'm gonna do some live benchmarking here, so we should have a pretty good video. And if you wanna buy this card through Amazon, use my Amazon affiliate link, which I'm gonna leave down below in the description section. The RTX 3070, in short, is here to replace the banging RTX 2080 Ti, right? Which in itself is still a pretty amazing card in terms of performance. But the price, is a bit high for most people. So in comes the RTX 3070 from Nvidia at a whopping $499 USD MSRP, right? While at the same time should be faster than the RTX 2080 Ti. That's absolutely nuts. Quick checkup on the prices revealed that the ASUS TUF 3070 does cost a bit more than the MSRP price, but not by much, right? Considering the incredible cooling solution on the card. In East Europe, expect to find it at around €700 range. That's a few €100 more, but the cooling solution and design of the card makes it well worth the cost. There are of course cheaper options even from ASUS that cost about €100 less than this, but you won't be getting the TUF cooling solution. So before we get into benchmarking, how good is it, right? Well, first of all, it is pretty much the exact same cooling solution that the TUF 3080 is using. So in theory, it should work even better on the 3070 chip here. ASUS has done a beautiful design job once again. Some minimalistic RGB effects that you can configure through the ASUS Aura Sync app, and there are a total of 3 DisplayPort 1.4As with an addition of 2 HDMI 2.1s, which means you can hook up your insane big ass 4K 120Hz OLED TVs to this thing and enjoy the full 120Hz 4K experience through the HDMI finally, right? And 2 of these ports here means forget about doing dual display with pathetic small 27-inch matchbox as monitors, right? 2 100-inch plus OLED TVs is what you gonna get, right? Am I right or am I right? Anyway, talking a little bit more about the cooling solution here, we do find that the heatsink is one massive chunky boy, which helps cool down the card to the best possible temperatures, while at the same time the 3 axial deck fans with the middle one spinning in the opposite direction helps keep the card cool and quiet at the same time. The heatsink also has a mirror finish on the bottom that connects to the GPU via thermal paste, which again helps better cool the card, as the microscopic glyphs edges you would see under a microscope have been thoroughly minimized to give you the best contact possible. Max contact technology, as ASUS has named it. The only downside of this is that the TUF card takes about 2.7 slots of space, so it might not fit into some cases that smoothly. Almost forgot, this card also has a pretty beautiful metal back cover to help keep the aesthetic beautiful and reduce the PCB flex. ASUS is also using some very high military grade capacitors here on the card to give you the best durability and performance as well. Also, if you notice, the card has a small little mechanical switch on the side which is the dual BIOS. In the performance mode, the fan is a bit louder and helps keep the card cooler without having to download software to manually adjust it. While in the quiet mode, yep, you guessed it, right? It's even quieter. The funny thing is though that even in performance mode the card is most of the time fully passive, aka the fans are not gonna spin at all, and that's all to do with how ASUS has developed their cards, so that the fans only start slowly spinning when the temperatures reach over 55 degrees Celsius. Feel free, of course, to switch between these modes to see if you find one better than the other. Both are almost inaudible though. Anyway, let's run through some benchmarks as well now. Now, I'm gonna be using my Z490 setup here, which has the Intel 10700K CPU in it, which is a 3.8 GHz CPU that boosts up to like 5.1 GHz in some instances, so should give us a pretty decent idea how exactly this card performs in an average PC that this card would get to go into, right? So anyway, yeah, let's run the benchmarks on the 8-core 16-thread CPU and see how it performs in some of the popular games out there. So, welcome to the benchmarking section here, and before we begin our testing here, first of all, let's check out what the temperatures are doing for the video card in idle, right, when there's nothing running, basically just Windows, just browsing the web, right? And we're gonna come back here later after all of our tests have been run through and check out what the maximum temperature on the RTX 3070, the TUF series here, went to. And yeah, as you can see, the GPU's up and running here shows me that the card's temperature at the moment is hovering around 50 to 52 degrees here. And yeah, I have this open case here, so there's no real airflow at the moment here. Basically, if I put a case window on the side here, it should be a little bit better even. But yeah, it will vary from case to case. But 52 degrees Celsius, and the fans are not spinning at all at the moment, which is pretty nice. So it's passively cooled well, yeah, passively cooled at the moment. So when it does hit 55, it will start spinning the fans, so yeah, that's pretty interesting. Anyway, let's run our first benchmark and see how it goes. Right, so a little bit of an extra I managed to put in here is Assassin's Creed Valhalla's benchmark, because I just received it through Ubisoft themselves, and yeah, should be pretty interesting, because we're gonna run the benchmark through at 4K resolution at most maximum detail possible without anti-aliasing, or at least anti-aliasing being low, as you can't turn it off for whatever reason. But everything else on the most maximum detail, and yeah, pretty awesome to see that they have a visual indicator, you know, what each setting actually does here, which I really love. Which I think we saw in like Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon games recently. But yeah, everything on the most maximum detail at 4K resolution. Let's see how close we can get with the RTX 3070 to the 144 Hz threshold, right? So let's set benchmark here. I'm gonna take recording off for a second. I'm gonna record in a separate video so it doesn't hinder the actual result of our benchmark here. But yeah, as you can see, 88 frames per second here when loading in, and I can run around, do some tricks, I guess. But anyway, let's see. So we can see Shadowplay's frame rate at the top there too, or we can see the frame rate here, and 60. Around 60 frames per second at the very beginning here, 55 to 60 frames per second, right? So expect to get around that with a 3070 on a 10700K. But let's see the final result at the very end, right? But as you can see, it does average around 60 frames per second. So 4K 60 frames per second at the most maximum detail possible is doable. But not much more than that. Of course, you might get a little bit more when turning every settings down to the lowest, right? I'm not gonna do it in this video here. I'm gonna have a separate video where I try out all different resolutions turn graphical settings down to the lowest in a separate video. So check that out on my channel if you wish. But yeah, 4K max detail, this is what we're gonna be testing here. And this is gonna be my main Assassin's Creed benchmark now. Odyssey is finally obsolete, right? I finally have Valhalla, and that's what I'm gonna be using with all video cards that I test in the future. But yeah, 62 frames per second, 63 looks absolutely amazing at 4K on this 65-inch monitor. But yeah, 61 frames per second here. I'm gonna hit record so you guys can see it a little bit better. But yeah, average 61, so 60 FPS gaming, 4K, doable in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Was kinda expecting this because it's not the best optimized game engine at the moment. It wasn't in, you know, Odyssey. Also, it wasn't in the previous one, the Egypt one. It was called Origins, right? And it seems to be the same case here in Valhalla. Hopefully, you know, better drivers will improve the frame rate a little bit that come out in a week or so. But I don't, you know, expect to get a little bit much better than that. Maybe just some frame rate improvement here and there. Anyway, stabilization. Yeah, anyway, let's move into the next benchmark. So let's run through a benchmark of Assassin's Creed Odyssey to give us a hint on how maybe Assassin's Creed Valhalla will run, right? And yeah, straight up heading into the options, we're gonna be running everything on 4K resolution. This is a 65-inch monitor here, 4K, 144 Hz, 4 millisecond response time, all the good stuff, right? So yeah, a perfect gaming monitor. I do have a review up on my channel as well if you wish to do so. It is the BG65UQ, which you can see here as well. And today I'm using the 457.09 drivers as well. And in the graphical settings, everything turned to the most maximum detail possible, except anti-aliasing, which I'm gonna just leave off here. So these are the settings. Let's run the benchmark. Alright, so up in the left corner we see 66 frames per second. Of course we see a lot of stuff here as well, but a little bit easier to check the frame rate over the left top corner here, and 40 frames per second when viewing the entire city scene here. Doesn't really want to drop below 40 though. Hovering just below 50, but not much lower than that. So 48, 49 frames per second, I guess that's kinda gonna be the average as well. Well, let's see. But around 48 frames per second, so can't hit 60, which is quite sad, but I guess, you know, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is such a game that it's not really so well optimized, right? But it is a wonderful game, a beautiful game, and a huge game, right? So it should give us a pretty neat idea, at least, how Valhalla will run. 51 frames per second as average FPS here. I mean, yeah, it's 4K, right? This card is meant to be played at 4K resolution, right? Or, you know, 1440p. But I'm gonna run all my tests here today at 4K because this is the standard pretty much nowadays, in my opinion. So 51 frames per second, yep, couldn't hit 60. Anyway, let's head on into the next benchmark. So let's run a game of Warzone as well on the most maximum detail possible, and you know, see how it performs, because this is the most played game ever at the moment, right? I guess, next to Fortnite. So 144 Hz, 4K resolution, right? And everything turned up to the most maximum detail possible. Also using ray tracing, which should be pretty nice. So these are the settings. We're gonna do a battle royale here and just, you know, check out what the frame rate does in a certain spot that I use to, you know, benchmark all sorts of different hardware. So let's check it out. Alright, so 85 frames per second here when dropping down. It's gonna take some time to for me to get into the benchmarking section place that I have. But yeah, 78, 80 frames per second here. Yeah, I'm not a sniper. Thank God he didn't act. Oh shit! Okay, I see him. Perfectly fine to play, right? Let's see if I hit record. 90 frames. It does take like 5 frames per second at the moment, but at least you can see me, you know, doing some neat little headshots, right? But let's turn off the frame rate counter here for a second to see some clean FPS. 44, 50 frames per second at this position here. 45, 43, 40, 57, 69, 70, 76, 77, 80 frames per second. Locked at 80 pretty much. 78. That's it. Record drops to 74, right? So, god damn, it runs actually pretty nice. Let's drop down to these two buildings here and let's record some proper frame rate as well. But this is around what you should expect when playing Call of Duty Warzone. Maxed out graphics, ray tracing turned on, and 4K resolution. That's absolutely insane. From a $600 video card, right? So it's got our parachute, and yeah, pretty much I'm here where I should take a recording of my frame rate here. 78, 80, 82 frames per second. Let's take a recording of 96, 97, 97 frames per second. Let's go here. Let's take this shot here. 83, 85 frames per second. And quickly here as well. 76 frames per second, right? Anyway, let's head on to our next benchmark, which I have Grand Theft Auto 5. So should be pretty interesting how it fares there. But yeah, this is what to expect from Call of Duty Warzone. Alright, so Grand Theft Auto 5, and these are the graphical settings that I'm gonna be using for my benchmark here. So 4K resolution, right, 144 Hz of course, but everything to the most maximum detail possible without anti-aliasing. So should give us a pretty decent idea how it will perform, right? And advanced graphics, everything most maximum as well. So let's run the benchmark and check it how it fares. Alright, so 89, 90 frames per second at the very beginning here, 100 even. But yeah, nearing 100 frames per second, almost went over 100 frames per second here at the very beginning. 60 frames per second here at the Winewood sign, right? But yeah, at 4K maxed out graphics, that's a pretty decent result. If I remember correctly, the 3080 in the very end got an average of like 86 frames per second or something like that. So it should be a little bit lower, but not by much, right? So let's wait for the longest pass where the plane flies and see how it fares there. 108 frames per second here. I have been on this thing. I have been in LA at E3. I did this, right? It wasn't that scary. But anyway, let's see. So 60, 66, 60 frames per second. A little bit low, a little bit lower, I mean, even. But I'd say average over 60 frames per second, right? At some places, yeah, near 100 frames per second, which is really nice. Of course, feel free again to fiddle around with the graphical settings to get a little bit better frame rate. But yeah, around 60 frames per second, 60 to 70 frames per second is what you should expect from Grand Theft Auto 5 here. And it does look pretty darn amazing at 4K, I must say. So yeah, hopefully this card will perform as well with Grand Theft Auto 6, wherever that might take place, right? I have heard that Rockstar Games is building the entire United States, which should be pretty awesome. But let's see. Anyway, Hollywood walk here, 115 frames per second here, 105. So this is pretty much the frame rate that you see while, you know, driving the car around in the city. 100 plus frames per second, almost 144, I'd say, right? Yeah, definitely turn down some settings, and I don't see a problem getting most of the time into those 140 plus frames per second at 4K. That's the most amazing part here. Yeah, alright. Well, the test should end right about here, and let's head into the documents and check out what the average frame rate actually is gonna be. And then let's check out what the temperatures did as well. Alright, so I have everything now opened up here, and as you can see, the average frame rate for Grand Theft Auto 5 was 79 frames per second for the longest past 4, right? Which is absolutely an amazing result considering 4K maximum detail, right? And as we can see, the temperatures reached 71 degrees Celsius, which is pretty decent in my opinion. Considering I don't have a case side window on it here, so the ventilation is not the most perfect, right? And of course my CPU cooler is blowing some hot air onto the video card here, which is also maybe not ideal at the moment. But still, 71 degrees maximum, and at the moment it's 37 degrees Celsius. That's absolutely insane. My room is pretty hot at the moment. It's 23.5 degrees Celsius, my room temperature here. And this card is at 36 degrees Celsius. That's amazing. Anyway, that's gonna conclude my quick little benchmarking section for the 3070. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, that's how the TUF 3070 performs. So, as you can see, the performance of this video card is absolutely phenomenal, just like the 3080 did. But this time, you know, it's even cheaper, right? It's even cheaper. And yeah, looking at the prices here in Estonia, where I live, it isn't so overpriced than the RTX 3080 was. I mean, the MSRP for 3080 was like $799, I think, and they sold it here for, guess how much? 1600. Okay, not that much. Around 1100 to 1200 euros. I think 16 or 1800 euros was the 3090. But it's absolutely insane how much some companies try to, you know, profit from this scarce availability of cars, right? Although, you know, some popular games like Cyberpunk is not out yet, should come out like next month in December, so should be pretty good time to invest in a new video card, right? So hopefully the stocks have been replenished and you don't have to overpay that much, right? But yeah, as you can see, the TUF 3070 is as good as the 3080 was, and yeah, my final score for the 3070 is going to be a proper 9.5 out of 10. And yeah, really hard to say anything bad about the card or something that I don't like. I mean, could have more RGB stuff going on for it, right? So if you like that, yeah, why not get this card, right? And the design itself, I mean, it is pretty good, but perhaps could be a little bit better, I guess. Anyway, that's it for my quick little review. If I left something out or if you have any further questions, leave them down below in the comment section. And yeah, if you liked the video, leave a like, and if you want to, for some whatever reason, you can sub as well, but you don't have to. Anyway, I'll be seeing you soon, guys. Ciao for now.